Super Rugby Friday games, folks. Highlanders Force and Brumbies Crusaders this weekend. So two teams, what's Friday? Two teams down the bottom in the Highlanders and the Force. Still trying to keep their hopes of that kind of 8th spot alive. And then the Brumbies and the Crusaders, two teams up the right end of the table. The Brumbies have just dropped the one game. Crusaders kind of an uncharacteristic 3, but they bounced back pretty tidily last week. We'll go through the squads, some stats and predictions, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how these games may pan out. The first one, the Highlanders and the Force from Dunedin, is kind of 7 o'clock kickoff, 7:05 over here in NZ. And like I said, the Highlanders' record is not great, neither is the Force. 3-8, 2-8. Remember, the Force have still got one game to make up against Moana Pacifica, which was called off a couple of weeks ago with some COVID cases amongst the Force guys. The Highlanders, though, at least they've had 2 wins on the trot. So maybe it's starting to come right, but they've made a pretty big selection gamble by moving Sam Gilbert in from the outside backs into first 5. So apparently he's played schoolboy rugby and a little bit of club rugby at first 5. But that's a big call, man. So Mitch Hunt's on the bench and Marty Banks is not even in the 23. The only guy I read that's injured is Coltman. So it seems to just be a bit of a selection gamble. We'll see how he goes. I'm sure if he takes the ball to the line, he could get some meterage. Makaleo's back at hooker, as I mentioned, with Coltman injured. Umanga Jensen is in there at 12. Timu's in at 13. Paya moves to the wing. Connor Garden-Bishop's still at fullback. Michaeli 2 is still there in the back row. Harmon and Lynch is still there as well. So Fakatava is still the man on the bench. Coombs Fabling is also back into the squad after recovering from injury, but only on the bench. And Fabian Holland is back on the bench as well for his second cap for the Highlanders if he comes on. So, yeah, I mean, the big story there is how is Sam Gilbert going to go? If he goes well, the Highlanders could be in for a good result, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. For the Force, it's much more stable. Ian Pryor is getting a start this week with Fines Lelawasa being out with a foot injury. Remember, Koteka is still out for the season, so we won't be seeing him again. But it's a big loss to have Fines Lelawasa out. I mean, I know Pryor's got the goal-kicking thing, but Lelawasa's just added that kind of bit of zip and punch to the Force attack. So with him out, I do think they will be lacking a little bit of that go forward, so they'll be relying on some other guys like Kunzel and Godwin and whatnot to help get them forward. Pasito is still there at 10. Mata Ali is the danger man in the back 3. Stunda is back on the bench. Michael McDonald's in on the bench, but as I said, Jeremy Thrush also gets a start this week as well back in NZ. So it's mostly the same side that played the Crusaders last week and played well for a half and then kind of got flogged. So we'll see how they go on the road. Stats-wise, the Highlanders have the lowest tackle percentage of the New Zealand teams, but they do play with a lot of ball. So it doesn't really matter that much if they have more ball. They don't have to do that much defending anyway. So we'll see if their attack's able to kind of sharpen up with, as I said, Gilbert's wheels to add some zip into that first 5 position. For the Force, they're making more clean breaks than they're conceding, which is encouraging because previous years it's certainly not been that. 5.1 averaging a game, 4.7 conceded. So it's similar, but at least it's in the right territory. But the tries is round the other way. Tries, they're conceding 3.6 and they're only scoring 2.7. So they're able to get some go forward, but not able to finish. It's going to be an issue for them if they fail to get over the line down in Dunedin because it is a tough place to go. And they are big-time underdogs, the Force. 16 points. The Highlanders are favourites with the bookies and 17 points with the algorithm. Brumbies Crusaders, the two teams doing really well, man. Brumbies have just dropped that one game. Like I said, they've been on a good run. They've been beating some New Zealand teams as well. So they maybe silenced a few critics last week with their victory over the Chiefs. And the Crusaders don't tend to have 2 bad games in a row, and they proved that bouncing back from their loss to the Tars by smashing the Force over in Perth. So this one's 7:45 kickoff over in Australia, so it's the 9:45 kickoff for us here in NZ. Unfortunately for the Brumbies, 2 of their key guys, Rob Valtini and Noah Lolesio, are both out for this one. Lolesio, I think, is just going through the return to play protocol, so he should be back soon. Valentini has got a hamstring injury, so could be out for a wee bit longer. So that's kind of unfortunate. You'd like to see them, with all their big guns to play this Crusader side, but it's still a pretty tidy looking side. Lockie Lonergan gets to start a hooker this week, so Fainga'a drops to the bench. Ala Alatoa is back at tight head starting after the bench last week, so that's good news. Tom Hooper takes Valtini's spot, so big shoes to fill for him. And Rodney Iona takes the first 5 jersey, so fly half ahead of Lolosio. The rest of the back line are still the same. Nick White, Simone, Ikitau, Muirhead, Banks, and Tom Wright. So yeah, pretty steady as she goes, other than those guys who've been injured. Tom Ross is also back on the bench. Luke Reimer. They've only got the 2 backs in Ryan Lonergan on Ollie Sapsford, so it's a 6-2 split for the Brumbies. I'm guessing they're assuming it's going to be a big old battle up front against these Crusaders boys. For the Crusaders, man, it's a pretty all-black looking team. The back line, Bryn Hall is not an all-black, but then Mo'unga all-black, Havili all black, Goodhue all black, so that's your first 5 in midfield. George Bridge, Severis all blacks, and Will Jordan all black. Reese and Goodhue are back in the squad after not playing last week, and Bridge switches wings. Goodness gracious me. The forward pack is equally pretty powerful. Bauer is up to start this week. Cody Taylor's back, Fletcher Newell's back, Scott Barrett is back. Whitelock's still there. Matera shifts to the starting lineup this week. Blackadder's still there, and Cullen Grace is in at number 8. It's about as strong as a Crusaders lineup as I think we've seen all year in terms of the starting 15. Fainganuku's dropped to the bench. Braden Enor's dropped to the bench. They've got 3 backs on the bench because they've got Tahuri Orangi there as well. It's a pretty mean looking Crusaders squad, as I mentioned. But we'll see how they go in Canberra. It is a tough place to go. Hopefully a good crowd for this one. Stats wise, the Brumbies still got the most mauls. But the Crusaders like a wee maul themselves. So you got the top mauling side against the 3rd most mauling side. So kind of not much between them in those regards. So that'll be an interesting one to see how each can kind of counter the other one from 5 metres out. Also, the Brumbies and Crusaders are both really effective on the carry. We tend to make out the Crusaders as a bit of a mauling team in the NZ media over here. But their ball carrying is genuinely really effective. It's exactly the same as the Crusaders. Like metres per carry, 4.3. They're exactly the same. They're 2 of the best teams. I think they're only behind 2 other teams. Maybe it's like the Blues and Canes or something. Yeah, they got good ball carriers all around both sides. It's not just the forwards. The Crusaders do kick more than the Brumbies, but only a couple times. So 24 kicks a game for the Crusaders, 22 for the Brumbies. So not much in it, but they are 2 of the sides kind of up the top. But certainly the Crusaders have still got the best breakdown numbers in the game. They are a hard side to push off the ball, so they concede very little ball at the breakdown. So, the Brumbies will have to try to cause pressure to maybe make some mistakes, but we'll see how they go at home. This one's a split. The bookies say the Crusaders by 5, but the algorithm says the Brumbies, remember it does tend to favour the home side, by 7. So yes, folks, it should be a pretty interesting Friday. You guys let me know your thoughts. Can you see either of the away sides getting wins? Like I said, the Crusaders are certainly the favourites with the bookies, but not with the algorithm. And the Highlanders are supposed to get it done pretty easily over the Force. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.